I think you can let people in, Morgan.
Sounds good.
Good morning, folks. We'll give it a few minutes for people to join the Zoom call. Good. I see you've joined, Laura. Do you want to just test your mic while we're letting people sign in just to make sure you're live for your presentation later?
Sure. How am I sounding?
That sounds great.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. We're just giving it a few minutes for people to join the call. If you wouldn't mind, if you don't have your organization, if you could edit your name and add your organization. I think you just right click on the hover over your name and you'll be able to rename it.
And Anna, hey, this is Ted Wise. Just so you know, I don't have an organization per se. So.
Okay, just fine, Ted. And I feel like I've met you years ago, but nice to see you again.
Yeah, you have met me more than once over the years.
I think so. Yeah. The hydro community is a community.
Yeah.
Were you with the state of Oregon? Am I remembering that right?
But, and
Yeah.
if I'm allowed to say for Mary Alice, I am on the governing board of Leahy. So.
Lucky for them. Just give it a few more minutes. Maybe we should go ahead and start with the front end stuff and people can continue to join just in the interest of time. So I'm Anna West, your facilitator with Kearns and West for today's meeting. I'm not going to repeat all these ground rules, but if you could mute when you're not speaking, as you're all doing, rename yourselves if you have an organization to put your organization in. And we are already recording this meeting, and we will distribute the recording afterwards to all participants or those who registered. Next slide. And the objectives for today, learning about the role of innovation in dam safety for hydropower operations, public safety, and, oh, I'm spotlighted, huh? It was over the bullet, so I couldn't read, and environmental sustainability. We're going to be exploring new technologies and innovations associated with dam safety. A focus on natural hazards, resilience, monitoring, inspections, and AI. We'll talk about opportunities to advance dam safety efforts, and we'll have questions for you to help us identify the opportunities as well as obstacles and barriers. And we'll talk about next steps. And then at the very end, we'll gauge your interest in future workshops and white papers. the agenda quickly. I'm now doing the welcome and introductions and agenda review. I'll then briefly just share a little bit more about the uncommon dialogue generally. And then Morgan Lomley and Chris Hayes, Morgan's with Kearns and West, Chris with NHA will cover what working group 2 is about. I'll have a slide on working group 1. And then we'll have the 3 meaty presentations, and you can see those there. After each presentation, we're going to be asking questions of the group. So we're hoping you're going to be very actively engaged and participating in the Poll Everywhere poll that we'll show you in just a minute. Then we'll have a wrap-up discussion and cover next steps. So here's the team that helped pull it all together. Working group 1, we have several co-chairs. Thank you, all of you. I'm not going to repeat all your names. And then we have co-chairs for working group 2 as well. You can see, and Tom and Chris are here. I'm not sure we have Brian today. And then Kearns and West team is here to support. So I think you've already edited your names, but if you want to add your name and affiliation in the chat, that would be great. I don't think we want to take the time to go through all participants speaking up, but we hope to hear from you in the dialogue later in the discussion. And we're about to launch into a Poll Everywhere poll. And we recommend, there are 3 ways you can do it. We recommend that you do it through your computer. And as you can see, you would link in the URL pollev.com/UCD Hydro 120. And that will then get you to a poll where you need to select answers. So if you could do that, here is the first question. We thought it might be fun to just get a sense of the different sectors represented on today's call. So if you could fill in your answer, A, B, C, D, E, or F. There we go. A pretty good mix. And Molly, I know you're with Argonne, but you're in the airport, so you probably can't fill it in. But so we do have national labs participating as well. And I know we had at least one tribal representative registered, but I don't know if that person is on this call yet. So a pretty good mix. Thank you. And here's the next question. What word comes to mind when you think about hydropower and dam safety innovations? And if you could fill in your one word that comes to mind, we'll then see a word cloud form on this slide.
And Anna, I'll just jump in really quick. I just want to make sure that everyone is able to use the Poll Everywhere tool, or if you need more time, we just want to make sure that no one is having any issues. And if you are, you can just let us know, or you can message Morgan or myself in the chat. Okay, I'm not hearing anything. I just wanted to take a minute because sometimes it can, the first time you use it, it can take a minute to get it set up. So, all right, and we're seeing some input here. So thank you.
Yes, and the bigger words means that many of you are filling it in. So I see risk and collaboration are 2 biggies here. Interesting. I assume what those of you who entered risk are talking about, we need to pay attention and take care of dam safety so we reduce our risks. And interesting that critical just got a bigger boost as well as collaboration. Thank you. All right. So now that you're all warmed up on doing poll everywhere, these are the discussion questions we're going to have after each of the 3 presentations. How could we advance, adopt, or scale the use of these innovations and technologies? And then a second question, what are the obstacles or barriers? So we look forward to as you're listening to the presentation, think about these questions so you're ready to answer them on the back end. Next slide. There. Oh, okay, here we go. Now it's just going to be an overview of the Uncommon Dialogue generally. For some of you, this is new, some of you not. So the Uncommon Dialogue on hydropower, river restoration, and public safety was created a joint statement in 2020, which is amazingly now 4 years ago. And there are 3 core R's that are central to it. Rehabilitation, which means improved safety and environmental performance. Retrofits, adding power at non-powered dams, entertaining some new dams in limited ways, and closed loop pump storage. And then removal, obsolete dams, recognizing that many are obsolete and need possible removal for safety and environmental reasons. Next slide. So in the Uncommon Dialogue, we have 8 working groups, as you see on the bottom, in addition to a plenary group and a planning group. And we are today co-convened by Working Group 1 on technology and innovation and Working Group 2 on dam safety. And you see the other working groups. And if any of you are interested in participating in any of these working groups, just let us know and we'll make sure you're added to the appropriate distribution lists. Next slide. I'm not going to go through all of this, but there are many accomplishments that have been, as a result of the Uncommon Dialogue. I'll mention the bottom right box. There's a package of licensing reforms that have been negotiated, and they're working on legislation to pass that. Dam safety is underway. Tax credits have been achieved, and the infrastructure bill established funding thanks to the Uncommon Dialogue efforts, and many other things as you see there. So Working Group 1's mission is to accelerate deployment of hydropower technologies, addressing all 3 R's. And our goal is to increase understanding and acceptance within the hydropower industry of the technologies that can modernize the hydropower fleet, increase sustainability of hydropower systems, and address the impact hydropower facilities have on the environment. And we've produced a white paper. We're in the middle of producing a second white paper, and there will be others to come that can be broadly distributed to advance all or the 3 R's basically. Next slide. So I think, Morgan, you're taking it first.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Morgan Lumley. I'm with Kearns and West, and I'm facilitating Working Group 2. I'll give a brief overview of Working Group 2.
You're a little soft, Morgan, if you could speak up or
Sure.
get closer to the mic.
Yeah, we Working Group 2 does a lot of great work. I wanted to put it into context so that, us, at least at Working Group 2, we'll keep an ear out for the technologies and innovations we're going to hear about today that might be in service to the recommendations that will come out of the working group in May. So the dam safety topics and issues that we address are related to understaffing and underfunding of individual dam safety programs, potentially lack of jurisdiction of some dams if they do change jurisdiction, where the working group is looking at the different hazard potential classifications and how those could be improved to increase awareness and action around dam safety. And there are some pieces that involve the states as well. State emergency action plans, developing recommendations on making sure those are up to date and comprehensive. And the last piece that the working group considers is in its kind of gaps analysis and concept papers is there enough money, and is it most easily accessible to trickle down to the federal or state agencies that need it to improve dam safety. Next slide. So the working group 2 objectives, I'll read this. It's always helpful for us to remind ourselves of what we're working toward. Identify ways in which the Uncommon Dialogue can address dam safety and removal through coordination, legislation, policy, research, and communications to complement and support existing efforts. That last piece there is of critical importance. So complementing and supporting existing efforts. There are tremendous programs out there, and there exists a lot of coordination in the dam safety space. And where can the Uncommon Dialogue, with its unique partnership, industry, academia, nonprofits, and others, where can we add value and identify gaps and try to bridge those together? So we hope to do that by building an understanding of how public safety at dams can be improved, and then increasing resources available to dam owners and operators. And May 2024 is when we'll have a gaps analysis outlining 8 different gaps that I'll share in a second, and expanding on those in the concept paper. Next slide. So the 8 gaps suggest multiple approaches to address the issues that I mentioned. And again, they're not gaps that have gone unidentified or unaddressed. They simply kind of outline ways that this partnership can help bridge those gaps. Next slide. And these are the 8. We worked on this list with our working group 2. We have a solid group of 50 to 60 individuals representing all sectors who helped us zero in on what are the gaps to increase dam safety, whether it's a hydro dam, it's a private dam, what are the gaps in understanding where the higher risk and higher hazard dams are, and making sure that the risk or hazards decrease. So first is increasing dam jurisdiction, then advancing emergency action planning, advancing hazard potential classification systems. The 4th is advancing risk-informed decision-making. 5th is developing state coalitions. 6th, public education and awareness. 7th is staffing and workforce. And the 8th is strengthening federal support for non-federal dam safety programs. So these overlap with some of the working groups. They overlap with existing efforts underway across the country. And again, it's what can we do together to bolster those existing efforts, whether it's legislative, regulatory, finance, appropriations, or just more coordination and data gathering around those pieces. So that's working group 2. I'm going to turn it over to Chris Hayes with NHA. We have a few more slides that put this into context, and then we'll get into our presentations. Chris?
All right, thanks very much, Morgan. So in order to get everybody excited about talking about, let's say, dam safety, technology, innovation, the work group 1 co-chairs and myself thought it would be useful to introduce to you, dam safety, and in this case, through the lens of an asset owner or a dam owner, in particular, through the use of perhaps a typical scorecard they would employ to gauge the effectiveness of their dam safety program. So just walking through the key components of an effective program, we'll see how the importance of understanding the dam system, and more to come on that one on the next slide. Importance of dam surveillance, flow control equipment, reservoir operations, public safety and security, emergency preparedness and response, dam and water conveyance structure maintenance, dam safety risk management, audits, reviews, key performance indicators, training, education, competence, information and data management, governance. And if we were to take one of these components, such as dam surveillance, and break it down, you'd see the importance of having a dedicated program around surveillance monitoring, including inspections, including instrumentation and data management, and routine dam performance evaluation. And really, the importance of, let's say, understanding your weak points or potential failure modes, the importance of surveillance, instrumentation monitoring, the importance of, taking in that data, understanding it, importance of data management, and then communication plays a big role relative to, making short, medium, and long-term decisions, effectively managing that within the organization, and obviously ensuring good communication between all key personnel. And clearly, innovation, technology, big opportunity across a number of these important areas. And hopefully over the course of the session today, some of that will be driven home. Next slide, please. So just looking at a layout of a typical hydropower facility, I just wanted to take a moment to perhaps share a few examples of, let's say, a systems-based approach to dam safety. So from a very high level, perspective, one example I can draw on, right, are let's say facilities that have traditionally been used, or hydropower facilities, I should say specifically, that have been traditionally used to let's say provide baseload power to a system, due to various changes to the grid. Perhaps these facilities are now being let's say deployed to not only provide baseload, but in many cases in industry today, being deployed, let's say, to balance, providing ancillary services and balancing to the grid. So from a dam safety perspective, looking at importance of reliably passing water either around or through your facilities, well, that means you're going to be operating your gates perhaps more often. So from a reliability and maintenance perspective, the importance of testing, inspection, and maintenance come to mind. Various innovations and technologies that tie into that. The inspection of penstocks, for example, can't be forgotten either, right? So public safety ties in as well. There have been incidents in the past, perhaps, where, again, human nature, creatures of habit, perhaps getting a little bit too close to facilities that have perhaps not used their spill gates, and perhaps now put into situations where they're using their spillway gates a little more. So the importance of public safety signage, sirens, alarms, notification systems come into play, and obviously technology has a big role to play there. Other examples, let's say, involving equipment within a plant. So thinking back to 2009, Shushinskaya, I should say, I believe it was, let's say, August 2009. Let's say, vibration issues with the turbine, perhaps operating in zones, rough zones that it should not have been, insistence on operating anyway, an incident where, your turbine vibrates right out of the pit. So thinking about it through the dam safety lens, if you all of a sudden lose power to your facility, you lose ability to open or close in this case, close your head gates, open your spill gates, makes you think of backup power systems and where those would be stored in accessible locations, below the powerhouse floor, which is now flooded. So from a dam safety system perspective, there's much to be considered. From an innovation and technology perspective, much to be considered. And again, just trying to get ready here for the upcoming three presentations. Next slide. And just a nice picture here of a facility operating as it should. So thought this was a nice picture. All right, so paving the way for today's presentations, really with the goal to identify technologies and innovations that may support the policy gaps identified in Workgroup 2, or shed light on other challenges that could be included in the work's deliverables. So Working Group 2 is looking forward to hearing from these presenters and giving us a sense of the options out there to address dam safety challenges. The three presentations today will focus on how Dam safety and natural hazards resilience can be enhanced through innovative collaborative technical assistance programs and emergency action planning. Innovative technologies for underwater dam assessments can improve infrastructure integrity, longevity, and safety. And applying science-guided artificial intelligence can improve dam safety operations through enhanced forecasting and improved risk management. So a very exciting lineup. And just wanted to take a moment to introduce our speakers. So Michael Hemphill, management and program analyst with FEMA, and Alessia Zagara, president of Creative Engagement Solutions. Bob Clark, Senior VP at ASI Group, and Laura Reed, Hydro Forecast Product Manager at Upstream Tech. So with all that said, I'll hand it back to Anna.
Thanks, Chris. And I will pass it right over to Michael and Alicia. So Michael, take it away.
Thank you so much. Good morning. I'm Mike Hemphill with the National Dam Safety Program, the headquarters FEMA. And Alicia, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Alicia Zagara, Creative Engagement Solutions, and we are the Outreach, Strategic Planning, and Technical Assistance arm of the National Dam Safety Program at FEMA headquarters. Nice to meet you all.
Okay. Again, good afternoon, everybody. Today, I want to talk to you about an important program that is designed to help communities prepare for and recover from disasters. The National Dam Safety Program is a partnership of states, federal agencies, and other stakeholders to encourage and promote the establishment and maintenance of effective federal and state safety dam programs to reduce the risk to human life, property, and the environment from dam-related hazards. Next slide, please. Our mission is reduce the risk to life, property, and the environment from dam failures, incidents by guiding equitable public policy and leveraging industry best practices across the dam safety community. The vision is the benefits and risks of dams are understood and managed equitably, enhancing public safety, national security, and the environment while adapting to climate change. This chart here reflects a high-level snapshot of the authoritative act that have guided the implementation of the Dam Safety Program. The most recent one being the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law in 2021. Next slide.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
So historically, the efforts of the National Dam Safety Program have been primarily focused on engineering. However, for the program to really evolve and be more comprehensive and effective in reducing the risk of life and property from dam failure, it's imperative and something that we're really striving for to make sure that emergency managers, planners, floodplain managers, and emergency responders all become an informed national policy in dam risk reduction. And this is something that the Interagency Committee on Dam Safety and the National Dam Safety Program are really striving to do. Even though FEMA is the advisory committee for those entities, it is a national program, not FEMA's program. So we're very cognizant in making sure, and I'll explain this a little bit more when I get to the strategic plan in a second, that all the activities that we do are very holistic, whole community encompassing to make sure all those key players are at the table when guidance, recommendations, and such are being developed. So as, oh, sorry, back one slide still. As Mike mentioned, the Dam Safety Program aims to reduce the risk to life and human property and the environment from dam-related hazards. And we have 4 key pillars that we stand on. And it's interesting because a lot of the things that you all mentioned and kind of the opening polls kind of hit within all 4 of these pillars. So leadership through the National Dam Safety Review Board and Interagency Committee on Dam Safety. And like I said, FEMA is the lead for that. But as you guys know, we do not operate or own any dams. We are strictly in a advisory capacity, and kind of leading all the collaboration between all the entities that do. Technical assistance in the form of training, collaborative technical assistance, which we're going to talk a lot about today, and technical expertise, public awareness through national outreach campaigns, and then financial assistance through the 2 grant programs, both the state grant program and their rehabilitation of potential dams, also known as HHPD. For anyone that doesn't know, sorry, my Alexa's talking. 1 second, everybody. Apologies. For anyone that might not be familiar with the grant programs, the State Assistance Grant Program provides financial assistance to the states and territories so they can strengthen their state dam safety programs. That's its only goal. And then the HHPD grant program provides technical planning, design, and construction assistance in the form of grants to repair, rehabilitate, or remove eligible high hazard potential dams. So those 3 R's. Next slide, please. Okay, awesome. So last year, we were able to publish the FY24, FY29 strategic plan. Again, this was a very collaborative effort amongst the ICODs and review board members, as well as countless private sector entities. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but you can see here on the screen what our 3 primary goals are, and then the objectives under them. The reason I wanted to quickly point this out is because the reason we're here to talk to you today is Planning for Dam Emergency Collaborative Technical Assistance Program. And this is a very innovative program in terms of how we're delivering it, which Mike will get into in just a moment. But it also is a key element of both FEMA's mission as well as that of the strategic plan. And specifically within FEMA's mission, we have noted that they want to deliver on the priority to close the nation's capability gap by catalyzing risk-informed mitigation investment in the national dam safety infrastructure via technical assistance to local communities. And as you know, dams are critical infrastructure, and we are doing our technical assistance directly down on the county level. And then our CTA program falls specifically under Goal 1, Objective 1 and 2. If anyone has any additional interest in looking at the full strategic plan, we have all of our milestones, key partners identified for each of these things. You can do so by either contacting Mike or myself or by Googling it via FEMA.gov. Next slide, please. Mike, you are muted, sir.
Try to cut down the chat. Hey, I just want to go over a quick overview of the Collaborative Technical Assistance. And from here, I'll say CTA. The CTA series aim to help communities of high-risk dam-related flooding to better understand their risk landscape and the potential for consequences of dam-related emergencies. The CTA includes planning for emergency related to operational discharges or dam-related infrastructure failure. The CTA is a 2-way commitment. FEMA will provide participating communities with necessary expertise, coaching, and tools. In turn, each community is expected to identify project managers who will attend all relevant sessions and ensure project milestones are met. The CTA is an interactive process that requires continued dedicated involvement from participating communities. FEMA recognizes the communities maintain differing levels of capabilities of dam risk, understanding, and dam-related emergency preparedness. Therefore, the CTA is a series of flexible, scalable, and adaptable. After communities assess the capabilities, they should consider participating in the entire series. FEMA will collaboratively work with communities to develop a framework of sessions that best fit the community's level of capabilities. Next slide, please. All right. The CTA program will result in new and renewed partnership between dam owners and operators and public safety officials and individual communities and also organizations that are at risk for dam-related emergencies. We will have a greater understanding of the operational consideration for dam owners and operators before and during and after dam-related emergencies and the associated consequences of the actions. enhanced risk of communications, strategy and better protective actions, decision-making for all dam owners and operators, public safety officials, and stakeholder organizations and communities. And one of the most important portions that we deliver is training or modeling and analysis of dam failure scenarios, including how to coordinate with state representatives to use the decision support system for water infrastructure security web, which we commonly is known as DSS-WISE, to understand likely consequences, dam emergencies, and how to integrate the results into future planning or situational awareness products. New and revised plans, assessments such as emergency operation plans, emergency action plans, hazard mitigation plans, and floodplain management plans, business continuity plans, and threat and hazards identification and risk assessment, what we call THERA, that gives a greater consideration to dam-related emergencies. Alicia?
So Mike kind of touched on some of these in the last slide, but because we are talking about innovative frameworks, tools, and processes, a couple that I wanted to just call a little bit of attention to, and then my case study that we're going to show here in a second goes into this a little bit more in detail. But one of the things of the CTA is, as we know, many communities are resource strained, time constrained, and personnel strained. So we really try and work with them to figure out what tools, frameworks, existing resources we can either give them access to and or teach them more about so that they feel comfortable utilizing them both in a sunny day scenario or in an actual incident. And so a couple of those are teaching them about infrastructure dependencies in the context of dam-related emergencies, giving them access to different data sets, different methodologies to support analytics and planning activities. Mike mentioned the THERA process and really walking them through that, figuring out how they can best utilize it in their community. DSS-WISE, other web-based automated dam break modeling tools, understanding that these can't be used in every scenario, but at least for planning purposes, these are really, really great tools that can put a community ahead of what they've been able to do just, personnel-wise. So we really, really strive to make sure that they know they have access to this. And DSS-WISE is actually something that FEMA does a lot of training on a regular basis. So if you're interested in more on that, or THERA, our team doesn't do that, but we do the DSS-WISE stuff. Please let us know. We'd be happy to link you up with some of that training as well. But these are really, really great tools that are available to everybody in different capacities. And so these are the types of things that we try and make sure that our cohorts leave knowing and understanding how to use so that they can implement them into their planning activities. And then we can go to the next slide, please. So our presentation version that will go out to the group has a number of case studies at the end of it. But there's one case study in particular that I wanted to bring up to the group, and that is of Ventura County. And you can go to the next slide, but please just don't hit start just yet. Thank you. Ventura County was part of our original pilot testing. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we did 3, one of them being in California. What was interesting about them, like most, the CTA program was so new that nobody really understood quite what the range was, right? And if you walk up to any community that's already stressed for time and resources, being like, hey, by the way, we're going to put you in this 8-month program and it's going to be great. They might not be super gung-ho to sign up for all 8 months or all the sessions right at that. And one thing we realized with them is they were very, very hesitant at first. So the group, because it is customizable, because we can kind of make sure we're only giving the community what they need, kind of reset and said, okay, if we're going to give them just a handful of things that are part of our full delivery, what would they really need? And we ended up delivering to them things on risk and crisis communication, a tabletop exercise, and a few more different things. But we kind of truncated them into longer sessions in person and then a couple virtual. What was really, really great is at the end of it, and I was actually there for their tabletop exercise, the amount of aha moments in the room was just baffling. It was fun for me because it was my first pilot to see, but it was really cool to see them interact because many of them in the room had never met in person. They had only met on the phone, and this was pre-COVID. They hadn't really talked through these scenarios. And if they had, it was only in an incident and then not come back and circle back around to kind of evaluate their processes or implement any changes for, in preparation for the next possible incident. So it's really great to hear from Glenn Shepard, who we'll hear in a second, the Deputy Director of the Ventura County Public Works Agency, and how it really brought them together as a county, and really helped them strengthen, renew their relationships, and also look at their emergency action planning, different tools they can use like DSS-WISE, and really see how that all comes together, which is the goal of the CTA. We want to leave a community with more resources, more communication, and more processes, or better improved processes than we started with, so that they can duplicate those efforts after FEMA leaves. And that is the goal of the CTA, which is a really great feeling to see come to fruition. So with that, let's go ahead and hit play on Glenn Shepard's video, please.
Hi, Glenn Shepard, Deputy Public Works Agency Director for Ventura County, and specifically the Watershed Protection District. Emergency Action Plan is a formatted, how-to in case a dam is experiencing a failure. Whether you're on one dam or multiple dams, it is key both to the state and anyone who has to plan for disasters. Enduring relationships that we have with FEMA, Cal OES, California Department of Water Resources, embrace a new particular project for collaboration. And so the CTA from FEMA allowed us all to come together in one room and talk to the risks and the communication strategies affecting different jurisdictions and the emergency action components of how we do and plan and prepare for disasters. We're all strengthened in relationships either developed or renewed to allow for this project to be completed. At DSS-WISE, the FEMA tool, that was a great addition, and probably from a technical assistance provided great and wonderful quality assurance to modeling and inundation study. We appreciate FEMA bringing CTA to our attention, and with our state and other city partners, it has really provided and strengthened our relationships as it relates to dam safety and communication of risk and responding to a potential failure.
Thank you. And we'll go to next slide, please.
Hi.
Sorry, Glenn, not again. Okay, just to round us out, we did want to let everyone know that the CTA application period is actually currently open, and it's open until May 17th. We just wrapped up all of our informational webinars. However, that being said, Mike and I know Molly's on the line, are always happy to meet with anyone in advance of that deadline to give you any information you might need to, if you are interested in applying or know any communities, jurisdictions that are interested in applying. Even though the deadline's not for a little over 2 weeks, we do recommend that anyone interested in doing so does take a look at the application, because you do need some stakeholder buy-in, both from the state and some other entities. So we want to make sure you have ample time to make those connections in advance of submitting your application. But just to give you a quick timeline, once it closes on May 17th, the application review and selection process will begin in June through August. In September, we hope to inform the cohorts and make announcements. And then we like to get the cohorts started in November. So that's our general timeline. More information to come as that develops, but we do welcome any applications from anyone on this phone, or if you know any communities that might benefit from this program. And we thank you so much for your time today. And I think with that, we are at our question slide.
So thank you, Michael and Alicia. Before we go to poll everywhere questions, I just wanted to pause. Do people have questions or thoughts they'd like to share based on what Michael and Alicia shared, especially thinking about that application timeframe? If you could raise your hand if you just want to speak, please do. Not seeing any hands go up. Okay, well then let's go into our poll everywhere. If everybody could go back to the poll, however you entered via mobile phone or computer. First question is, how could we advance, adopt, or scale the use of, I guess in this case, the technology is really the CTA, the assistance program. How can that be advanced or improve the use of it? Looks like people are typing. We're not seeing the slides again, Morgan. Did you take them down?
Thanks, Anna. I am pulling them back up right now.
Thanks. Still not seeing it. Are you screen sharing? There you go. So are there no responses? Is that, or is there a poll everywhere issue? Morgan?
The poll everywhere is looking good on my end now, and it looks like Denise posted in the chat that it just appeared.
Got it. Now I see an answer. For the person who get the word out more broadly, how, any suggestions on how to do that? Are folks still having poll everywhere issues? In which case you could also type your responses into the chat and we could view it that way. Okay. If you have answers, please add them in the chat, but then I'm wondering if we should just proceed to the next question. Morgan just put in a, oh, there's one more suggestion. Collaborate with specific USSD technical committees. What are USSD technical committees? Could somebody define those? Or maybe it's the rest of you know that? Thank you, Denise. So let's go to the next. Oh. Good point. Looking at it, emergencies on a regional scale, which means more broadly working within the state and the region as well as the local entity involved. All right, let's go to the next question because we have one more question before we go on to the next presentation. What are some obstacles or barriers for these types of innovations? Sounds like people are not aware of these opportunities. Staffing and scheduling always a constraint. Any other thoughts on obstacles or barriers? Coordination between the states and the federal agencies. Good point. Any more thoughts? Funding. Is that funding for the state or funding for the local areas? Or is it yes to all of the above? Federal funding? Any thoughts on funding limitations? And more specifics? Okay. Oh, interesting. So the cost of sending folks is an issue, especially if you're all going to one location. There's travel involved. All right. What?
Oh, I was just gonna say, Anna, I just wanted to invite the speakers to Alicia and Michael and Molly, if you have anything to add on these two questions, anything from your perspective too, we welcome your thoughts. If you have any responses to some of these to the thoughts from other folks, yeah, we'd love to hear.
Yeah, I'll chime in. Definitely, I think one of the biggest things, and this is actually something we strive for with the CTA and why I mentioned to look at the application, is you actually have to have buy-in by your state and the region gets involved through FEMA. So we are making sure that it's a more holistic view. And the funding portion of it, FEMA actually brings the CTA to the cohort. So FEMA takes on the cost of travel. So that the location and such is where at the communities. And then obviously the state then also has to invest that time. So there is a small investment by the state, but all really good points. I think in terms of awareness, that is something that we've definitely been working on. We do work really closely with ASDSO, USSD, and others to get the word out whenever we have the application open. But I think the biggest thing for us, honestly, is staffing and scheduling and just cohorts having the capacity to really take something like this on, which is why we're currently in the process of looking at what the next generation of CTA cohorts looks like and how we deliver it and where we can, offer different variations of it to both get to more national applications and then variations that don't require a full 8-month dedicated thing. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Anything to add, Michael?
Just again, just to extend on what Alicia said, the program is absolutely scalable, flexible, and even though we say 8 to 10 month process, we're looking at now and going into for year 25-26 for more compressed delivery, and it's all dependent upon what the stakeholder requests from us. They may just want a DSS-wise light course, and or looking at the emergency action plan, the emergency operation plan. We can come in to assist and help develop those programs for them. So absolutely contact us if you want to be involved. Look at the application process and apply. We're waiting for the opportunity to help the states and the county and municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Michael and Alicia. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And I think it is Bob Clark's turn to from ASI Group to talk about innovative underwater technologies. So take it away, Bob.
Thanks, Anna. Bob Clark. I'm a professional engineer registered up in Canada. I have a background in commercial diving, underwater robotics, and currently with ASI, I've been tasked to look into more R&D aspects. So we're being a little more proactive in applying new technologies, looking for those, developing those, primarily for the underwater inspection technologies. Next slide, please. Just a little bit about ASI itself. It's been around getting close to 40 years now, and we do operate internationally. We have offices throughout North and South America, done partnerships over in Asia, and we've worked throughout Europe as well. So primarily most of these projects are related to underwater inspection services of power facilities, dams, penstocks, intakes, outlets, those types of things. Next, please. The tools that we use are varied. Here we have a collection of some of our remotely operated vehicles. A remotely operated vehicle is the ones that we operate. They are tethered. They have range capabilities from a few feet up to 8 miles with the cable. And that's the example of the vehicle over on the top right corner there. That's our Mohican. That's about the size of a small car. The LBV over on the upper left, that's about as small as a bread box. And the ones in between are sized accordingly as well. So it's not just the tethered vehicles. They're equipped with cameras and lights and sonar systems and other sensors used to acquire data underwater, but also the above water unmanned survey vessels. So the Otter is a commercial, readily available system technology that allows data collection in areas where personnel are not allowed, just safety concerns. The ASI CAT scan down on the bottom row was one that we've developed specific because the ones that were off the shelf just didn't have the power. This was an operating power canal, close to 6-7 miles in length, and they wanted a complete survey done above water, below water. It was a full condition assessment being done. And the platform was modified to take underwater multi-beam sonars. So we could collect the 3D data underwater. We could collect images of everything underwater. And they wanted everything photographed along the canal as well. Not just photographed, but also with LiDAR. So there's an awful lot going on and integrated. And just it would not be possible to do this any other way other than combining all those technologies together into that one platform. It did operate remotely. It was quite the entertainment when we hit the go button because it took off like a shot up the canal and pretty much navigated itself all the way through for the next 4 or 5 hours by itself. We would monitor it. If need be, we could jump on, just like remote desktop. We would remote into the system. We could control it. If it got really sticky, then we could run up and do like an RC control, radio control, and visually operate it directly with those controls. Worst comes to worst, we could always shut everything off, hop back on, and do a full manual override. So it could operate in 4 different ways. It was an amazing piece of technology that was developed for a specific project and has been leveraged for projects since then as well. Next slide, please. The basics for underwater inspection work are usually just the video camera. So we could go down, you can assess pipe degradation, condition assessment of the concretes, see if the piping is intact. The video over on the right side, we actually had great visibility on a project and it needed a little bit of reverse engineering. They weren't sure what they had. So by taking that video, extracting all the frames out, throw that into the software, we recreate a very accurate 3D model using photogrammetry. We got the 3D model here. Nice thing with photogrammetry is you can take the skin from those images and lay it on top. So we have a very real 3D model of that underwater asset. And the benefit of that is it's measurable. So it is true 3D. We can measure. This is roughly an 18-inch pipe. So that's a double check. And just by way of information, this is actually a screen capture from a PDF document. So that 3D model is inserted into the PDF document. The clients don't need high-end software. They need obviously a good PDF package, but now they have the full model. They don't need a very high-end expensive software. It's a huge advantage. Clients always want to see, feel, and touch. In the underwater environment, that's a little tough to do, so we can bring that environment and the models of their infrastructure back to them. Next, please. Where we don't have great visibility or where we're looking to cover a very large area, we'll use sonar systems. Sonar is sound, so it emits a pulse, comes back, and the sensor receives that signal, that reflection. There's 2D, there's 3D. 2D is like taking a flashlight, shining it across your tabletop, and you get reflections back. So the bright spots, dark spots. And 3D is instead of shining that fan of light across the desktop, we're now shooting a single pulse, very precise, well-defined shot of sound, and that goes back, hits the target, comes to the sonar, and brings back a point value in X, Y, and Z space. Do that 1,000,000 times, and on the bottom right, you can see millions of points in a point cloud, very similar to what a LiDAR is above the water. You can take that, blend that in with the above model, and again, putting everything back into context. And this is type of information that a diver would not be able to provide and relay back to their supervisor up top. It's a solid model. It's all repeatable. accurate, and measurable. That example on the right is basically it was just going to be a bathymetric survey of the spillway in a tail race, and we found that, by the way, the spillway is being undermined. So a lot of valuable information that is being picked up with a dedicated underwater assessment. That is one of the key parts about underwater assessments, is that there is an awful lot of infrastructure below the water line that does not get that casual daily observation. So planning these things, investigating them on a regular basis to ensure the integrity of the asset is key. On the left side, you can see the size of this intake, the trash racks, the screens that are going in there. There's the workers during installation. What the owner was doing on a regular basis was having divers go down, check all the bars in each of those trash racks, and make sure there wasn't too much debris lodged up against them. This is roughly, the water depth was about 100 feet. So it has very limited time for the divers to be able to do that. And quite often it was very bad visibility. So exactly where the diver was always up to question. Could they cover the whole asset in their diving program? The client reached out to us, wanted to apply some new technology, had heard about this sonar thing. So we said, sure, just transition to the sonar image, please. So we went down, and we had to inform the client that, by the way, you don't have any trash racks. They have all collapsed. So with respect to diver safety, it's a huge risk putting divers in when the barrier that's meant to protect them isn't there. Obviously, lockout tagout would have to be done for diver protection. For putting a robot in, it's not as critical, so we can do a lockout. We don't have to go to the full extent. And usually also, if we're doing multiple intake units with a diver, then units adjacent have to be locked out as well. With an ROV, we can do a lockout on the single unit, and then the other ones, they generally are actually left operational, and we can manage the vehicle accordingly. You'll see the white drawing, which is put over top. It just helps put everything into context again, so the client knows exactly what's where. Next, please. Again, some of the products and some of the applications that sonar systems provide. On the upper left, you can see where there was energy dissipation blocks on a spillway. Some of them are missing, some of them are gone. The actual slab itself is eroded. And on the downstream end, again, there was undermining of the tow. This work was done when this area was isolated for safety, because we did use a manned vessel through there. One of the interesting applications that in the note there is the fourth dimension, trends over time. This type of data is repeatable. We can come back year after year and collect it. And the images over on the upper right side, those orange colored ones, the top image was taken about 3 years after the one immediately below it. And you can see the progression of the spalling. Again, putting that whole area into context, something that a diver can't do by feel and touch and relaying. There's also more detail. The shadowing and banding in there is just an artifact from creating the image from multiple smaller images. So it's all stitched together. So that's just an artifact. But when you really zoom in, you can see individual pieces of rebar in some of those images. So the progression of the technology is phenomenal. Some sonar systems now get right down to like 1/8 of an inch, being able to see that level of detail. It's very, very impressive. One of the big applications for long tunnel work that we do a lot, and even for open water areas, is surveying for the debris. Again, at the trash racks, we've done many projects where just go down, check, make sure the trash racks are fine. Like the previous example, those trash racks had failed completely. That was a structural issue of the support beams. Other areas are when debris is piling up against the trash rack. So they're being overloaded. The head pressure is actually creating a significant stress on the structure. So being able to do that quite often with the trash racks is while the system remains operational. So there is no shutdown, there is no loss of time, no lost revenue generation. Next, please. As mentioned, some of the sonar systems are measuring down to 1/8 of an inch. You can see little defects. This wire scan system is a bespoke engineering solution developed by Hydro-Quebec that measures down to 1 millimeter. As Chris had mentioned earlier in the introductory comments, being able to operate your gates under an emergency is critical. And by taking these highly accurate measurements to a millimeter, Hydro-Quebec ensures that their facilities will operate as intended and when intended. So knowing the true verticality of those gains and slots, any deformation which may be caused by impact, swelling concrete, differential settlement, they know prior to even trying to install the gates and the slots. ASI has commercialized this, so it's available outside of Hydro-Quebec now, and we've done several projects throughout North America for the owners. Next, please. Leaks through dams, obviously a very major concern. Historically, or what had been done before, divers would go down and very cautiously wave telltales or bits of string in front of them as they are going around looking for a leak. Finding leaks on a dam is one of the most hazardous things for commercial divers. In fact, it's one of the leading causes of fatalities. With even just a little bit of pressure, the diver can get stuck up where that leak is, and they cannot come off. So being able to do it with robotics, with remote technology, huge savings, huge safety factor as well, especially if there's no visibility. The examples that I show here, we do have the telltales, we do dye injection. For larger areas where we may not have the visibility, we'll listen. You can listen for the leaks using hydrophones. So if there's a pressure differential, there's going to be a sound. The sample over on the right is actually from a survey that was done in a very large tunnel. So the tunnel is 13 feet in diameter. We're not going to be able to look for that needle in a haystack going up and down searching for the leaks. We did that before, and it's a very time-consuming process. Now with the hydrophones, we can have the full array. We can go out through the tunnel, listen for those leaks, map them all out, and then go back and visually confirm. We don't have to be looking for them. We're listening for them as we go through. Next, please. And this is the most recent bit of technology that's that we brought to market and that we're aware of as well, is through a partnership with Vector Construction Services, NDT division. We are now able to test concrete integrity underwater without having to core. So it's a non-destructive method, being able to put transducers up against the wall, we impart an energy and then listen for it, basically. And so based on how that signal is received by the other transducers, we can determine the strength of the concrete and also where there's a liner thickness. So the residual thickness that's there in the concrete as well. Next, please. Just an example of some of the research and development. It was about a 1.5 year program. Some of the beta things are over on the left side there, and it's finally integrated onto a remotely operated vehicle. It's been used for an assessment, which was a very interesting project. Aging infrastructure, life extension programs are a big thing. Want to know, is the concrete still good? Or if we are redesigning and repurposing the facility, what is the strength of the concrete? So that's where this project was done over on the right side. We're able to go down, collect multiple points. Next slide, please. Collect the multiple points and highlight it in the table for the owners and their engineers. So everything in below red, that basically was below the criteria that was set by their design team. And then they're able to actually do their design based on real information as opposed to assumptions. Next, please. This was specifically made to be integrated onto robotic vehicles. And so we are now capable of going 8 miles into a tunnel and still doing concrete assessment that whole way. This project here was a shorter tunnel. I can say like it was only 18,000 feet, but able to go in and do liner thicknesses and concrete strength. And generally, the values that come back are within 500 psi of test and calibration cores. So it's a great way to be able to go in, do that concrete assessment non-destructively and quite quickly, and in areas that are simply inaccessible to divers as well. Next, please. And pretty much wrapping the presentation up. It's not just about getting data, it's about actually doing work as well. So the robotic vehicles, they can be modified to help go in and repair directly, or even to assist with repairs. one of our highlight projects was down in South America at the Cheves Power Station plant in Peru, where they had leaking piping from their penstock. So in order to isolate that piping, they wanted to basically decommission it all. The only way to do that was to put a plug in from the inside of the penstock. That location was roughly 6 miles down a tunnel and close to 2,000 foot of water depth. So no other way of doing it unless they dewatered that whole facility, which is unsafe. They would also have lost revenues and a host of other issues that went along with it. So a plug was designed, the plug was inserted. Picture on the upper right was that's basically the money shot. When they took all of the piping off, that's the plug on the other side, holding back roughly 20 tons of water pressure and 6 miles of water. So we have that picture framed and up on the wall. It's a good one. The client kept the plug as a souvenir, and basically that job was done in less than 24 hours in the water. So it was a huge undertaking. A lot of planning went into it, but also very successful and a great demonstration of where technology is going to be able to help, basically even help with the maintenance operations of a plant. And next, please. So basically, just in summarizing, robotic systems, remote technology, they can be used in areas that are inaccessible for conventional means and divers, and or areas that are high risk. It's data that can be acquired on the inspection side of things that's recorded, logged. Now you've got a history. So over time, comparative analysis can be made to see if there's progression of anomalies, or hopefully everything's fine. But now it's also documented. Having that information goes a long way with insurance as well, because now it's a two-sided juggle, is that the owners can demonstrate to their insurance agencies that we've inspected everything, it's fine. The insurers can now mandate we want that inspected, and then that also ensures that their risk is fine as well. One of the things with the technology, especially the long distance aspects, is that FERC used to be able to grant waivers for long tunnel systems because the technology was not there. It was very cost prohibitive to dewater these things. And so waivers were granted. Don't worry, if it's still working, then that should be fine. Now the technology is there. There is more of a push to require inspections for these types of things. And just again, in summary, it's not just the acquisition of data, but also the ability to do some actual work and intervention and assist with repairs and maintenance.
Thank you, Bob. Amazing, very exciting to see these tools. Aaron Ragazzi, you had a question in the chat. Do you want to ask it of Bob?
Sure, if I get off mute. I was just curious what the range of costs is for going down and making use of these tools.
That sort of goes along with the vehicle, from small as a bread box to large as a car. So small as your piggy bank to we need a checkbook. Just the
well, for the examples that you provided, where you were looking at where there was scour, where you discovered there was scour, and then also the where there were no longer trash racks, like what's the range of those types of actions?
Well, those types, where the trash rack example, minimum number of personnel, so a couple of people, and initially planned there for a day. So anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. Of course, not knowing all the details, it's a very broad brush for that type of it's not a quote, but an idea. And also where the bathymetry is being done, now we're having boats going in the water, personnel, more equipment. It's a different type of equipment. And so that one's probably going to, I would say, probably start at around 30.
Around
okay, thank
30,
you. I was just trying to get orders of magnitude, like what we're talking about, because we're a regulatory entity, and it's important for us to understand what costs are associated with these types of things.
Yeah, we get that asked that an awful lot. It's just, well, we just want a quick estimate. Well, there are so many different parameters that go into it. We can look at the specifics, and or from any contractor really. If you provide them the specifics, and then they get a quote, and the quotes are free. So, but at least they're accurate as opposed to something on a napkin.
And Bob, I'm aware of divers and the risks associated with that. So how would you compare your cost if somebody's already using divers to check, the trash racks? Are you more
Yeah.
expensive or less expensive? Do you know?
Usually less. It's usually less expensive. ASI as a company, we have a commercial diving division and we have the robotics as well. So it's just another tool in the toolbox. What we will do is do a quick scan with the sonar, ensure everything is safe. If there is going to be a lot more detail or manipulative type of work, then the divers can go in and know that it's safe. If it is just a general visual assessment, then we just stick with the robotics. And the 2D scanning sonar is huge. That provides an awful lot of information very, very quickly. And there are some cases where we started out using divers, just decided this is taking too long, and we put a sonar system in and we're able to complete it in a fraction of the time.
And I think this may be in the questions we're about to go to, but I'm curious about the adoption. How long have these technologies been available, and how are you doing on seeing use within the US at least?
Yeah, ROVs have been around since the 50s and 60s, but certainly not to the level they are now. It's not just the technology itself has improved, the cost of ownership has come down. People with their own private boats go and buy little mini ROVs now to go fishing. They want to go look at the fish. So that scale of technology and scale of capability is huge now. And then just general availability of it. Same with the autonomous underwater systems where they're pre-programmed. You let them go and they're untethered. They go fly their mission, and then fingers crossed they come back to you. We've used them in open water surveys, which is the more common application. We've also done extremely long tunnels with those, up to, I think the longest tunnel is actually over 40 miles in New York. And that system was a bespoke development specifically for a tunnel going in to find leaks. And it's been operated 3 times. It is unique in the world. There's no doubt about it. And it's even though we embrace technology and innovations, that certainly has a lot of caveats to work to operate. It's not, okay, we're just going to throw this into the tunnel and hope it comes out the other end. It's a very expensive asset, and clients don't like things stuck in their tunnels either. So very, very specific needs. As with all the technology, a lot of tools in the toolbox, people are becoming more aware of them through programs like this. It's an educational type thing more than anything else. We've been operating them for 25 years plus. So we have that very inherent knowledge, how to interpret the images as well. And that goes along to assist the owners and engineers with the interpretation. Sometimes people will look at a picture and, oh, I know what that is. Well, we've made mistakes, and so have other experts made mistakes on the interpretation. So we do want to be careful of making sure that the product is correct and understood by the owners.
Jose?
Yeah, quick question, Anna, if we have a few minutes. But Bob, thank you both presenters. Great information. My question, Bob, specifically to the material you've presented, from a working group 1, where we're really focused on not only creating visibility into innovation, but maybe I want to pull a little bit on what do you see coming, or what is the opportunity to continue to innovate in this technology? Is it more on the hardware side? Is it more on the data processing side? Is it a little bit of both? Or maybe generically, are there exciting things that you see in the horizon that we want to continue to, telegraph to our industry?
Yeah, that's great. My official role is Senior Vice President of Research and Development. So that's the question I wake up every day to, actually. So coming down the road, there will be more non-destructive testing methods for sure. Our next program is ground penetrating radar. We know it works underwater. It's just now we have enough horsepower to actually develop it independently. So those types of things. Probably be bringing in a little more of the work class type vehicles for some of the underwater work. Most inland assets are not overly deep, so they will use diver systems even in saturation for some of the deeper work. But ROVs have displaced some of that as well because they're capable. And just trying to think of anything new. We are developing new technologies all the time. We've got sort of like our own skunk works, and so down the road we're looking at more work capable type of vehicles to fit the inland market. There are certainly those types of things for the offshore market. One of the big disparities that we are sensitive to is that the oil field market, they are used to spending big bucks. Daily operations on our rig. It's not uncommon, the number gets thrown around all the time. That's $1 million a day operation. Power generation facilities may generate $1 million a day, but they sure don't want to be spending $1 million a day either. So it is taking the technology and appropriately scaling it and applying it. One of our biggest competitions is actually budget. Some of the technologies are not inexpensive. So, but again, it is what it is. When we look for the navigation systems, we're looking at spending $80,000 to $100,000 just on a small component. So
innovation could definitely be targeted at cost reductions as well, Bob. So thank you. I know I could ask a million questions, but Anna, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, let's go quickly to our questions. And I see Drew Michael put his contact information in the chat. So if you all have follow-up questions, find him. But go ahead to yeah. So we're kind of having the conversation about how do we advance, adopt, or scale the use of all these technologies Bob's shared with us. If participants and have ideas, please fill it in. And Bob, do you want to try to answer that?
I think that, like, as mentioned, these types of programs are key. It's just getting the information out there. Been attending trade shows since joining ASI, and it is interesting. Clients, there's rotation of personnel, so new people come in, they're not aware of it. So now they get introduced to the technology, and even those that are familiar with it, they get the updates as to what's new. That is one of the things with a service provider, is that the service provider has to maintain state-of-the-art equipment. It's not uncommon that owner operators, we can do that. They go buy the equipment. Problem is they don't have to maintain state-of-the-art equipment. And they also have higher turnover than a service company would. And it's not uncommon that owner operators buy a small ROV, which is great for something quick and dirty. But then they start progressing and getting more advanced systems that they don't know how to maintain. It's not operated on a daily basis, and people lose their expertise with it.
And Jan, you have a question. I think we're having poll everywhere issues, so we'll just have discussion and then I'll move on to the next presentation. Jan?
Yeah, thank you. Bob, I'm wondering what relationship you do have with the insurance companies for, I assume, insurance, particularly for privately owned dams, and to what extent insurance historically has either been provided incentives or disincentives for dam safety and with respect to the owners.
Just from a business development and marketing aspect, I know we have approached insurance companies in the past to say, is this of interest? But it was didn't really go too far with them, which kind of surprised me. Maybe we have done a few jobs that were, I guess, under the auspices of insurance claims. Some of the jobs were, oh, a tunnel failed. Well, that should be covered under the insurance thing. While we were doing the inspection, I didn't know why there was 15, 20 people hanging around and watching. They were all the insurance people. So when we got to the area they thought that had previously collapsed, it was fine. Oh, okay, our insurance part's done. They took off, and then we found another area that was collapsed. So that would start up. But we've never really had much dialogue, I can say, directly with the insurance companies. We've had a lot of jobs which were driven by insurance claims. And part of the one of our longest running jobs actually down in South America was a result of a collapse. they did the repairs, and then the insurance owner mandated that it had to be inspected, I believe it was almost twice a year. That would have come at the cost of dewatering the facility. Dewatering a tunnel creates stress, pushes back on the liner, which can induce a collapse, which is what has happened with Snowy Mountain assets. And so they said there has to be a better way. And so they use ROVs and hybrid type vehicles to conduct a lot of their inspections now. So it's the insurance side and the regulatory side as well. To get their operating license for the plant, you have to be able to demonstrate to FERC that your assets are good. So it's the demand side legislation. So either regulatory or even the insurance counts as that, where if the owner can provide that level of surety, I guess, then they have a better leg to stand on when negotiating, shall we say, with the insurance companies.
Any follow on, Jen, or did that address your question?
Yeah, that does address it. I'm wondering generally whether or not at a state by state basis, whether or not the regulations for private dams would be an obstacle or could create an opportunity for insurance to drive accelerated dam safety technologies.
Probably, yeah.
Sounds appropriate. Any other questions? And then and feel free to put your comments in the chat and we'll go on to our last presentation. Okay, thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
I think we'll keep going, Morgan. So yeah, there we are. So Laura, it's over to you on AI hydrologic forecasting.
Hi, thanks everyone. My name is Laura Reed. I work for a company called Upstream Tech, which I'll talk about today. My background is water resource engineering and forecast systems. So thanks for inviting me to speak, and I'm gonna hopefully not talk super fast, but a lot to get through to stick to my 10 minutes. So yeah, I'll speak today about hydro forecasts, what we built, why we built it, how folks are using it to integrate AI into dam safety in their organizations, and then how we fit into the uncommon dialogue conversations. Next slide. So a little bit about who we are at Upstream Tech. We're about 35 folks that work remotely across the United States. We have 2 products. We work globally with those products, and we're expertise, anything from subject matter folks like myself to data science people, natural resource conservation folks, etc. So we've come together, and our main purpose that brings us together is to use data for good, and good meaning to help our environment and manage our natural resources. So just one quick note on Lens, if you go to the next slide. Sorry, I need to get better at. Okay, so Lens is our, I'll call it other product, the one I won't focus here today, but essentially it is a remote sensing platform that folks are using to monitor different types of land or water, shoreline, or land that they need to monitor remotely because it's difficult to get there, or they need really specific analytics and data, high resolution data. And so these are some of the data sources that we pull in and make a really easy to use platform. Okay, next slide. So motivation for hydro forecast. Why did we build hydro forecast and what is it? Next slide. Essentially two pieces came together to create a sort of perfect storm for building this product. The first is that as we are experiencing in some parts of the world, managing water is really difficult, and it's becoming more difficult if you're in an area that's experiencing changes in climate, changes in variability. Lots of high-profile things always can find a news story about how difficult it is to manage water through events, through droughts, etc. And the other piece of that is that water is used and is becoming an even bigger piece of the pie of using for power, for electricity generation. And the figure on the right, all it's to say is from the 1800s, you can probably not even see the axis there, but basically from the 1800s to where we are today, how we use energy globally, how we consume it, the sources are very different. And they're becoming much more intermittent sources are coming online as we move into a renewable grid and bring on new sources that were not traditionally meant to, or not traditionally built to use. And so the question is, how can we use different types of technologies to help us in this transition to have a reliable electric grid? So we have these things happening, and then next slide. We also have advancements in computers, technology, AI. And so, we have folks that are fundamentally making different types of models because more data and faster technology is available. And so the question is, how can we use that in conjunction with the first slide on water and energy crisis to really move the needle to help with managing these challenges that we face globally? And I'll just leave this question here. Are we on the verge of transformative AI? So the corollary being around the early part of the 1800s, we experienced the Industrial Revolution, where fundamentally we started making things differently. We manufacture things and supplies and build things differently. And the question is, are we in that space now with AI? Is it going to basically advance us into a new realm of how we use data, how we manage our systems? And I'm not going to answer that question. Okay, next slide. So the culmination of water challenges and needing better information to manage our water, especially as water becomes more precious from a power perspective, plus the availability and advancements of computers and AI, what can we do with that to leverage both of those things? And so HydroForecast is essentially our answer to that. So we've built a model in a fundamentally different way using AI, using neural networks that can be used for better predictions of water, stream flow, inflows into reservoirs, etc. And from there, even other renewables. How can we forecast those as well so that we can help build that portfolio of a reliable grid? And so today in the remaining part of this talk, I'm going to show some examples of how folks are currently using our forecasts for managing dam safety. That's in terms of events, construction planning, and interim risk reduction. Next slide. Okay, and just briefly before getting to those applications, describe a little bit about HydroForecast, what makes it unique. Next slide. So briefly, in a one slide summary, essentially what we've done with HydroForecast is said, all right, there's this way that we've always built hydrologic models. Hydrologic models meaning you're going to be able to predict stream flow, and you're going to use that prediction to manage your water. And so the question is, how can we take a new type of model and some of the advancements in data that's available, neural network speeds at which you can run experiments and integrate new R&D, and see if we can train a model to learn hydrology just in a fundamentally different way. So here on the left, I'm showing what we do in terms of weather sources. So our model takes into account 4 different weather sources and uses that precipitation, temperature, humidity, all the things that drive hydrologic prediction, but it uses more of them, and it's actually trained on them. And so it learns how to deal with the errors and the biases. It also pulls in the bottom left there, snow observations, satellite information. So we're using that in real time. And that's all possible because that data is now more reliable, it's coming in faster, more frequent, and it's better quality. And so we're pulling those things in a way that helps train a really big model to learn hydrology fundamentally. And when it does that, then we can go use local information and build a really, really accurate, specific model. And so that's what I'm showing here is how we leverage all those different weather technologies and sources with remote sensing sources to build hydrologic prediction. And so over on the right, it's just an example of our forecasts over a big spring event compared with what else is out there from NOAA. Next slide. And so the question is, does it work? And one answer to that is that we were put in a year-long competition. It's called a forecast rodeo. Everybody submitted their forecasts every day for a year across 19 sites. A third party validated these results. And so different players, public and private folks, entered this competition. And our forecast did pretty well across the different locations. And so for a small company like us that's trying out this new technology and trying to innovate in this space and build that community, this was a really important milestone for us. Next slide. We work with folks, and so basically after that competition, and as we've started working with customers, we have lots of different customers in the utility space globally and across 14 countries, including folks that work on the power supply side and also just water supply. Next. I'll focus today on showing some examples from our short-term model because that's the most applicable time horizon for dam safety. But we also have seasonal forecasts and a long-term projection that goes out to 2100 to understand how flows can change in terms of future long-term out projections. Next slide. So I'll kind of walk through two different applications. The first one is with Tacoma Power. So they're one of our customers. We work with them. They have snow and rain-driven basins up in the Northwest United States. See there just south of Tacoma, Washington. And they have some basins that have downstream consequences for floods. They've got winter precipitation, really heavy rainfall. They have snow. It melts in the spring, just like you'd expect. And so they're managing all the ways to that reservoir level, trying to keep it high enough so that they make sure they're going to refill if they have a low spring and snowpack, but also not wanting to overtop and have the possibility of spilling. So here our forecasts are shown in the top right there. We have the dark line, that's our mean. You can barely see the observation, but that's the gray line underneath it. And they're probabilistic, so we're giving folks the ability to understand risk and uncertainty in the forecast up to a week ahead. And at that point, a week ahead, the precip forecasts are disagreeing. And so that's one of the reasons that we have a wide uncertainty bound and we're still narrowing in on what that event could look like, but giving some foresight into, hey, something's coming. Next slide. And so as that event gets closer, so 4 days ahead on the top, 1 day ahead on the bottom, the forecast is able to take those precip sources that are updating and understand which ones are looking better because it's been trained on those same sources and use that to make a really accurate forecast. And the consequences of deciding, oh yes, I need to make a decision to pre-release water or I want to hold are very important to folks managing dams, as you all are aware of. And so having that forecast and being able to rely on it and have some confidence bounds that are looking at the uncertainty there is really important for managing events during the winter times here. Okay, next slide. So yeah, the second application is we have a customer named Valley Water. They're in the Bay Area of San Francisco, and they are using our forecast for managing events as well as construction. So they are doing construction on some of their facilities, and that can be a really critical time for having an accurate forecast. They're a little bit different than Tacoma Power. They're in a really urbanized area, very flashy basin, and they also are responsible for helping issue emergency warnings if they were to have an event that could put a downstream population at risk. Flows can go from 20 CFS to 1,000 CFS when they get atmospheric rivers, so it's a very difficult area to forecast. Here I'm just showing, this was over the recent winter, atmospheric event comes in 5 to 6 days ahead. You can see something's coming with that 90% confidence bound. Next slide. And then as we get closer, 2 days ahead, and then with that second peak, the model is able to pick up, especially within the 50% confidence bound of all the likelihood of having a serious event. And you can see the flows up to almost 1,000 CFS there. And so what this means to our customer is basically being able to prepare for this and make sure there's no equipment, there's no folks out in the rivers. They can start working with their emergency management a little bit earlier to maintain safety around these events. Okay, next slide. And so to bring it back up a little bit to Uncommon Dialogues, essentially the 3 R's that are kind of the crux of this conversation, rehabilitation, retrofit, and removal, are things where hydroforecasts could help with some piece of that in terms of, you know, if you're rehabilitating an area and you're wondering what the long-term potential is, then using our projections to go out to 2100 to better understand what flows could be like on that time horizon. As well as if you're working on retrofitting a dam, we have folks that are doing construction, doing interim risk reduction, and using our operational forecasts have been helpful for the short term and the seasonal outlook to make sure things are not going to get worse. And then for removal, if you're looking at, well, how will flows be without this dam? Getting the natural picture in a stream or river after removal, our forecast can be used there. And last slide. So just a few takeaways, I won't read them here, but we are definitely interested in continuing to advance how we use data, tools, and AI for a narrow application of streamflow prediction and renewable forecasts. And we think that we've seen a lot of promise in how these tools can be applied and used by organizations that are looking to innovate there. And if you're interested, we have a pitch for our CEO gave a talk on promises and pitfalls of AI. We're not just a tech company that's promoting AI largely and broadly. So check that out if you're interested. And thanks so much.
Wow, thank you, Laura. And I really appreciate the slide before talking about how your AI work can apply to all 3 R's for the uncommon dialogue. Folks, we're going to skip the poll everywhere because that technology seems to not be working for us today. But our questions, anybody has, raise your hand or just chime in, and we'd love to hear from you. Questions or thoughts for Laura.
Yeah, and I've got one. Laura, great job. Thanks very much. So you talked on long term, but beyond long term, when it comes to the PMP or the PMF, have you and the firm, have you started looking at 100-year floods or 1,000-year floods, really extrapolating outwards, or is it still relatively, 50 to 80 years max time frame looking out?
Yeah, good question. We haven't specifically focused on that part of the hydrograph or that part of the CDF, but folks have asked us to start looking into that. We've been talking to some people at the Army Corps who work on probabilistic flood hazard analysis and understanding how we could use our system and our data to really drive that. Because the fact that we just can do experiments really fast by running tons of realizations using different scenarios. So certainly something we're interested in.
Awesome. Thanks.
Any other thoughts? I'm also interested we've got, I think, several of you from state agencies. Any thoughts about how this AI work might apply or be helpful to you? And similarly, NGOs? Not seeing the discussion.
I'll jump in.
Thanks, Erin.
Might be. I'm eating though, so I'm not coming on camera. We've met with UpTech before, or Stream Tech before, through the TNC and others on this type of work, and very interested in how we can understand what type of flows might be there relative to, especially during low flow periods. So not so much in the hydropower realm, but more in the, protecting species and trying to ensure flows for species, especially during drier periods and when there's more diversions occurring. So we're looking at more of the unimpaired type of situation in terms of how you could manage a system and understand what type of flows might be there to support species and other beneficial uses.
Thanks. Yeah. So given climate change and things are getting drier, what does that mean for the river system?
Right.
Yep. And then how can you manage for fisheries, et cetera, with increasingly dry times?
Yeah, and I didn't focus too much on that in this presentation, but that is something we've been working on and we're really excited to keep working on with TNC.
Thanks, Laura. Ron?
Switching to the website again, it does seem that with projected climate change, there's going to be changes in the state of PMF assessment practice And it would be helpful to perhaps have a discussion in the Uncommon Dialogue about that.
Thanks. And I'm assuming this is recorded, so we'll make sure we get that comment in the meeting summary, Ron. Thank you. And Raja?
Raja Hassan from the State Water Board. And my question to Upstream Tech, if they have tried to look to water quality, like temperature. You can also use like climate data, day of the year, all these things to predict temperature in streams. Have they tried to look at that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. We actually have, and it turns out that for things like temperature and turbidity and DO, sort of the physical constituents, a very similar model can do quite well at predicting those in addition to the stream flow. So you're right about that. We haven't pursued that as like a product that we stand up and scale technically yet, but it certainly is on our radar.
Good to know. Other questions or comments on Laura's presentation?
I have a quick question. Laura, how do you feel that this is being received so far? Is there any hesitation with bringing on a technology like this? Or I'm just curious to hear your experience in when you're kind of sharing about this product and doing that outreach, what you're generally experiencing as far as how people are reacting or responding or adopting it or not adopting it.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I actually find this super fascinating. I feel like at the beginning, AI is very scary, and it still is very scary for all the things it's doing and all the regulations that we want to be working on at the same time. And it's also this push. It's a way to push us to do things a little bit differently than maybe we've always done. And so I think we're seeing folks be excited about, for the specific problem that you have, what can AI or what can a new way bring to solve that. And so for Streamflow, we actually are seeing a lot of evidence from academics, from experience operationally, that this is a good solution for this particular problem. And as we talk to more folks, and utilities are trying to innovate and they need to take new tools because the challenges that they're facing are becoming very difficult with the renewable targets and all of that. I think we're seeing a lot of excitement within the field that I didn't know would happen so quickly. So it's certainly energizing to see that. I think there is certainly good skepticism of it all. But as long as we're able to kind of describe and explain why our models are doing what they're doing and show that they're solving this challenge, it's been a fun journey to be a part of that. Yeah.
Thanks. Raja again?
So just talking about transparency and how your model perform, AI are known to be, especially in water resources, are black boxes. So do you explain to your client what parameters exactly are used and what you tried and how you train the data and all these things, or it is just a black box, they take it, they use it?
Yeah, I think it's a really important point. We definitely on our dashboard are trying to expose as much input data as we can. So we're always showing precip, snow, temperatures, inputs like that. We do have tools that what you call look inside the black box, break open the black box, that show what the forecast is paying attention to. So you can kind of interrogate the model and say, hey, why did you make this forecast? What were you looking at? And so we have those tools that we share with our customers. As far as our code and all that, for a private company, we're pretty open, like we're really collaborative, and we've published a couple of papers on the methods that we use. So definitely more interested in collaborating and advancing the field all together and exposing as much information as we can that is useful to our customers. Thanks for that point.
Thank you.
Thanks. We have a couple overall arching questions I was hoping to have a little bit of discussion before we close. Thank you, Laura. And maybe I think the next slide, Morgan. Oh, are we? No, sorry, go back. Well, So
It
just
looks like they're going out of order. Yeah, was that happening, Morgan? Was it glitching?
Apologies. Yes, just had a very strange glitch, but we'll be up and running in just another second.
Mary Alice, I see your comment in the chat. Yes, these three are very different presentations. The Dam Safety Assistance Program, underwater technologies, and all the ways that that can help things, and then AI and flows, and it sounds like it could be AI and turbidity, temperature, and other things coming down the pike. Very interesting. So those are the three topics we covered. We're interested in a discussion. This is like a free-for-all. Just raise your hand or chime in. What is missing when it comes to innovations and advancements in technology to improve dam safety for hydropower operations, environmental sustainability, and public safety? So what's missing, folks? And secondly, are there gaps? Where are there gaps and where are there opportunities for dam safety innovations? Any and all thoughts on these two questions? Nobody's wanting to offer it up? You could also put it in the chat if you have any thoughts. The two themes I think I was hearing, one is bringing the costs down so these innovations are more accessible to more entities, I guess. And then it sounded as though across all three of our discussions today, increasing awareness of them is really important, so people are aware and can encourage their use. Any other thoughts from anybody else? Not hearing it, so maybe we'll go to the next steps. Oh, this was another question for you. What future workshop topics should we address? And below you see a list here of topics that have come up. We've added cybersecurity. We talked about dam removal. We thought about that here, but we thought we had too much to cover here on dam safety. So dam removal, downstream fish passage, upstream as well, and these other topics. So any thoughts on these topics for future workshops? Do you have preferences? Do you encourage certain topics, or are we missing topics? Not a very chatty group today. Jen, are you about to say something?
I was, but you covered it, so thank you. Was cybersecurity.
Good. And Denise, you put in the chat river geomorphology. That would be, it's a priority topic you think we should address? Yes, got it. Okay. Any other thoughts on topics, folks? Okay. Now to next steps. I think the next slide. Yeah. So we will be sharing the slides from today, and included, I think the speakers had expanded slides that we didn't have time to cover today, so we will share those so you'll have more detail than what we've shared today. We'll also prepare a meeting summary and have this recording and send those out. We'll be sending you an evaluation form. We're interested in your feedback. If you could help us on how this workshop went and ways we can improve it in future workshops. We will be holding future workshops, and we'll keep you on the distribution list so you are made aware of the opportunities as they get scheduled. And we're putting together white paper or white papers the first white paper, we covered water quality in January, and now this workshop on dam safety. And we'll be combining that into a white paper that will be out in June. And then as we have future workshops, we'll prepare white papers to cover those as well on all the topics. So any final thoughts, co-chairs, anything you want to add in from working group 1 or 2?
I just want to thank everybody for participating today, all the speakers and Brittany, great job. Thanks.
Yes, thank you all. And thank you participants for taking a couple hours out of your day to be with us. Thanks all. Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And feel free to reach out to us or the speakers if you have any other questions or need anyone's contact information. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.